Hail fellows and foresters, it's Sister Emma here to share with you more knowledge and lore of medieval beasts and the wild spaces they inhabit. For her birthday, my mother asked me to go into the woods and find a branch and turn it into a walking stick. I've decided to turn it into an artistic project and bring you along for the creative process while also sharing some knowledge of the beasts and birds of the Middle Ages. There's a fellow on Etsy who I've followed for a long time. He fashions walking sticks with one-of-a-kind illustrations. I particularly favor the walking sticks he makes with images of birds. I want to use that as the inspiration for my mother's walking stick, but flavor it with the images of a medieval bestiary. I also want to make the piece relevant to mothers or motherhood. So enter the nightingale. I'm going to base my artwork on this illustration of a nightingale. This is part of a bestiary produced in France in the 15th century. It is now housed in the Netherlands. The full manuscript can be found online, titled Museum Mirmano MMW 10B25. It's at manuscripts.kb.nl, link below. I love the night sky in this image, so I will incorporate that. Instead of the ground, I'll perch this bird on some snaky vines with colorful blossoms inspired by other manuscripts I'm familiar with. While I paint this cutie, let me tell you about the connection of nightingales to mothers. For that, let's take a look at the Aberdeen Bestiary, produced in England circa 1200. This bestiary dedicates more pages to the topic of birds than it does to beasts or serpents. It has a lot to say about doves, but that's not for today. By the way, this whole bestiary is available online from the University of Aberdeen, and each page includes the transcription of the original Latin and a translation to English. Big kudos to the university for this. Love to see it. Here's what the Aberdeen Bestiary says about nightingales. The nightingale is so called because it signals with its song the dawn of the new day, a light bringer, Lucinia, so to speak. I do love me a good sunrise. It is an ever-watchful sentinel, warming its eggs in a hollow of its body, relieving the sleepless effort of the long night with the sweetness of its song. It seems to me that the main aim of the bird is to hatch its eggs and give life to its young with sweet music, no less than the warmth of its body. So we're already seeing the focus on motherhood in the description of the nightingale. It continues and ends with this allegory. The poor but modest mother, her arm dragging the millstone around, that her children may not lack bread, imitates the nightingale, easing the misery of her poverty with a nighttime song, and although she cannot imitate the sweetness of the bird, she matches it in her devotion to duty. This prose leans a bit heavily into the martyrdom ideal of motherhood, but those were the times. I like to think my mother hasn't suffered too much raising her children, but similar to the nightingale, she does like to sing. Living in North America, I've not seen or heard a nightingale myself, so let's pop up a quick photo as reference. Okay, small brownish bird, rather plain. Now for a bit of a giggle, let's see a few creative depictions of the nightingale from other medieval illuminations. Starting out strong by revisiting the Aberdeen bestiary, small brown bird, nest of eggs, lovely border. There are other bestiaries from various time periods and regions that mimic this illustration, and not just for the nightingale. This guy looks nothing like a nightingale, but is nonetheless decorating the nightingale section of this French bestiary. This full digitized manuscript is available online from the Bibliothèque Nationale de France in their online repository called Gallica. Here we have a nightingale posing as a blue-footed booby. Northumberland bestiary, England, 13th century. And a blue hawk-lake nightingale, possibly the first documented instance of an angry bird, bestiary of Anne Walsh, England, 15th century. Ah, the poor dead nightingale. But they get points for accurate color. Der Naturenbloem, housed and available digitally from Lippes State Library, Germany, published in the 13th century. Finally, I like to call this guy the Technicolor nightingale. Not at all accurate, but very flamboyant. The workshop bestiary, available online from the Morgan Library, produced in England circa 1185. This walking stick was painted with gouache and sealed with many coats of satin polyurethane. I marked the bottom at 6 inches, 10 inches, and 12 inches. This is a great way to know the depth of a puddle or stream before you step in it, a trick my Uncle Jim passed on to me. My mom loved the gift, and I loved the process of making it and learning about another creature of the Middle Ages. Hold your horses. I have some sources. I have to give a lot of credit to bestiary.ca. This site is a personal project of a scholar and fellow Canadian, and it is my launching point for most of my content on the beasts of the Middle Ages. This resource allows me to find published texts from period, modern texts on the subject of medieval beasts, and of course, the illuminated manuscripts that depict the beasts I talk about. I have named all referenced bestiaries throughout this video, and I will link to them in the video description below. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll return for some of the future videos I have lined up.